Alright, this is study number 6, and it's in Genesis 33, verses 1 to 20. So I will read that for us again. Genesis 33, 1 to 20. It says, "And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and 2 female servants, and put the servants with their children in front, then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. He himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, 'Who are these with you?' Jacob said, 'The children whom God has graciously given your servant.' Then the servants drew near, and they and their children, and bowed down to him. Leah likewise, and her children drew near and bowed down to him. And last Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down to him. Esau said, 'What do you mean by all this company that I met?' Jacob answered, 'To find favor in the sight of my Lord.' But Esau said, 'I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself.' And Jacob said, 'No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand, for I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Please accept my blessings that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough.' Thus he urged him, and he took it. Then Esau said, 'Let us journey on our way, and I will go ahead of you.' But Jacob said to him, 'My Lord knows that the children are frail, and that the nursing flocks and herds are a care to me. If they are driven hard for one day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord pass on ahead of his servant, and I will lead on slowly, at the place of the livestock that are ahead of me, at the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir.' So Esau said, 'Let me leave with you some of the people who are with me.' But he said, 'What need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord.' So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. But Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built himself a house, and made booths for his livestock. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, on his way from Paddan Aram, and he camped before the city. And from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he bought for 100 pieces of money the piece of land on which he had pitched his tent. There he erected an altar and called it El Eloi Israel. So last time what happened was that Jacob was going to meet Esau, and right before he does, he has this wrestling encounter with the man. So that wrestling encounter with the man is very important, because it is how Jacob comes to the realization that he's not actually wrestling with Esau all his life. He's not, even in the womb, he's like wrestling with Esau, wrestling with Laban, but he's actually been wrestling with God. So this conflict with Esau has to be seen in light of his relationship with God. And so that's where we come to this story today. Alright, so let's go through a few points with this passage. Obviously, this passage is kind of the main climax of the entire story, of the entire Jacob cycle, because it begins with his conflict with Esau, right? And even in their mother's womb, they were wrestling with each other. Then he steals his blessing, steals his birthright, runs away, and his entire worry is, am I ever going to be able to come back? And here in this story, he comes back, and he's scared that his brother Esau's going to kill him, but he doesn't, right? They are so happy to see each other that Esau's falling over each other, kissing and crying and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a happy ending. It's a happy climax. Esau doesn't actually want to kill him. Maybe he grew up a little bit. Maybe let the past be the past. We don't know, right? But he came with 400 men, so it's really scary. It's like, why do you need 400 men to come out to meet Jacob? And some people speculate maybe it is because Esau actually did kind of want to kill him, but then had a last-minute change of heart. Who knows? Who knows, right? So in the wrestling with God, maybe, Esau's mind was changed or something like that. But really, Jacob does see that the fact that Esau doesn't want to kill him as it's from God. It's seeing Esau's face, he says, is like seeing the face of God, because God's the one who Jacob again realizes that he's been fighting with all his life, not actually Esau, and that the mercy that Esau is showing him is actually the mercy that God's showing him. So that's kind of like basically the main point of this passage. There's a couple other points that we can go over, but one of them is like all these weird questions, like why does Esau ask these questions of Jacob? Is like, who are these people? Like, what are you, like, all this kind of stuff. And then it's like, hey, come with me to this town, Seir. And then Jacob's like, no, very politely, no. Hey, let me give you some bodyguards. No, it's fine. So it's kind of like, what's up with that weird, like, conversations? And I think when we look at the passage and we see how Jacob is basically not really trusting Esau. He's kind of like, hey, let me keep my distance from Esau. He even tells him, hey, you go ahead to Seir and I will meet you there. But he doesn't actually go to Seir. He goes to Succoth and then Shechem, right, which is in Canaan. And so it shows that Jacob is not putting his trust in Esau. Whether it's just he's still suspicious, or I think also, and both of these are probably true, both of them at the same time, is that he's actually putting his faith in God. He now trusts God completely, that he doesn't need to trust Esau anymore. He doesn't need to really associate with Esau. And part of it is also, historically, there are two different nations that have had some positive relationship, Edom and Israel, but also some negative relationships, some conflict. So this story is kind of illustrating, hey, they're still not like completely together. But Jacob is trusting God, and he is not needing to trust Esau. So that part is kind of a interesting part of the story where Jacob is still saying, hey, God is my God, and I don't trust Esau. I'm not completely trusting Esau, because it's not Esau who's letting himself make peace with Jacob. Jacob's like seeing, I feel like maybe Esau still really wants to kill me, but God's just preventing him. So let's hold back here. Let's distance ourselves from Esau and actually bring myself closer to God. And so I think that's kind of what's going on right there. And that part's it's evident from everywhere Jacob says he gives credit to God. He's saying, these are the children that God gave me, right? These are, and take the blessing that I've been given, the birthright I've been given, and I'm giving it back to you. So all the stuff that he took from Esau, he gives it back to Esau, and Esau does accept it. And Jacob is like, I don't need to wrestle with Esau anymore. I don't need to fight with Esau to get all my stuff. I've already been blessed so much by God, and he's recognizing that. So you can see a really big change in Jacob and how he's living his life. And when they meet and they're like crying, and it's just a really, you have to kind of feel the tension and then the release there. Like, is he gonna kill Jacob? You have to get into the story to really feel that. I know we know the story, we know the ending, so it's kind of like, it's not that impressive, it's not that exciting, but it's really like in the scope of the story, it's like we don't know what's going on, and then they kiss, they hug, and they're crying, right? So somehow God had prevented Esau from carrying out like what seemed like his intention. Otherwise, why would he bring 400 people just to meet? I mean, it is a more dangerous area, like on the road traveling, but really, why? You don't need to do that. It doesn't need 400 men, right? So it seems like Esau really did kind of want to take the revenge on him, but he decided against it. And that's provision from God. And so he goes, and there he erects an altar to El Elohe Israel, means the mighty God of Israel, right? So he's like saying, he's giving credit to God at the end. He's worshiping God all the time now. He's erecting altars. That's a theme. The last aspect of this is just that Jacob gets a piece of land. So he comes back to Canaan, and remember the promise is that he'll be fruitful, he'll like have a lot of descendants, so he'll multiply and he get really prosperous, but also that he will come back to his father's land and that he will have land. He will inherit the land of Canaan. So him getting a piece of land, buying a pretty big piece of land in that area of Shechem is actually an important part of the story and kind of like the final fulfillment of God's promise to Jacob. So God came through. God came through with every single part of what he promised. And I guess for the application part, we want to reflect on what are the promises that God has given us in our lives, and are they fulfilled or not? And do we have faith that God will fulfill that promise? Do we even have promises from God? Have we even wrestled with God about what we want from him and what he's promised us? And so some of the elements of this is that, hey, sometimes we think we can't even take a hold of his promises because God owes us nothing. That's kind of true that God owes us nothing, but he still promises us stuff, and that's in his mercy. So because he's promised it, we can hope in that. And some of us have hoped in it, and some of us have hoped in his promises, but maybe we haven't actually received the promise, or we don't think we've received it. So where's our faith in that? And then finally, God, I think he does come through. He comes through in each and every one of our lives. For me, God's definitely fulfilled so many promises to me, and that's a huge part of my spiritual walk. Sometimes we think God owes us nothing, so we can't demand anything from him, and whatever happens is just nothing. But that's not really what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that, hey, he actually promises some actual stuff, and he fulfills them, and we need to be grateful to him for that, and we need to trust him for that. It's not just that anything goes, it's that God actually comes through in things that maybe only we care about, maybe aren't that important, but he still comes through with those. And we can trust in him, and we can look back, and I look back and I'm like, my family, my kids, it's just such a blessing of just so many like awesome things that God's given me. And really, is like a family and kids that important? I mean, yeah, they're important, but more spiritual answers like, oh, God, it's only God, nothing else matters. But it's not that. It's those things do matter, and God gives them to you, and he promises them to you, and he fulfills them to you. Now, is God going to give family and kids to everybody? No, I'm not saying that, but God does give promises. So what are those promises that God has given you, and has he fulfilled them? So yeah, that's it for this study.